The German Zeppelin Hindenburg, proudly called the Queen of the Skies, was one of the most breathtaking marvels of human engineering ever created. On the evening of May 3, 1937, around 8 p.m., this majestic airship took off from Frankfurt, Germany. Its destination lay across the Atlantic Ocean, thousands of miles away, in New Jersey, America. On board were 97 people in total, 36 passengers, and 61 crew members. When we think of the word aircraft today, our minds immediately picture airplanes, but the Hindenburg was not an airplane. It was an airship, the largest airship in the world. Measuring to 145 meters in length, it was a floating giant in the sky. To put its size into perspective, compare it to a Boeing 747, and you will realize how unbelievably massive it was. It was only 24 meters shorter than the Titanic, which had once held the title of the world's largest ship. This was why people called it the Queen of the Skies, the pride of Nazi Germany. The inside of the Hindenburg was no less astonishing. Traveling in it was like being in a flying luxury hotel. There were private rooms for sleeping, a dining hall where everyone could eat together, and even a lounge with a grand piano. Passengers could relax in a reading and writing room, gazing down at the world below through enormous windows. The ticket price was $700 at the time, equivalent to more than $7,000 today. Clearly, only the rich and privileged could afford to fly on this airship. It was not just transportation, it was an experience reserved for the elite. After a 3-day journey, on May 6, 1937, the Hindenburg finally reached America. It was scheduled to land at the Lakehurst Naval Air Station in New Jersey. As the giant airship descended slowly toward the ground, at about 7 p.m., excited crowds gathered to watch. Cameramen were ready to capture the historic landing on film, since the Hindenburg was considered one of the greatest achievements of aviation. But that evening, the weather was not favorable. The sky was overcast with dark clouds, and winds were strong. To align with the winds, the captain made a sharp turn. Ground crews rushed to grab the ropes and secure the airship. Everything seemed normal until suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the air. Within seconds, the entire airship was engulfed in flames. It all happened so quickly that no one had time to react. In just 34 seconds, the Hindenburg crashed to the ground, burning to ash. The mighty Queen of the Skies had turned into a skeleton of smoldering wreckage before the horrified eyes of the world. The disaster shook humanity. People were desperate to know the reason. Investigators worked tirelessly, and 3 major theories emerged. The first was sabotage. Some believed that anti-Nazi activists or even foreign enemies had planted a bomb on board to destroy the pride of Germany. Others whispered that Hitler himself had ordered the destruction to discredit the man behind the airship. The company that built the Hindenburg was led by Hugo Eckener, one of the few brave Germans who openly spoke against Hitler during his rule. In 1933, when the Nazis came to power, Hitler had tried to arrest Eckener, but President Paul von Hindenburg had intervened and stopped it. And yes, that is where the airship got its name, from President Hindenburg. Later, when the airship was completed in 1936, Hitler's propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels even requested Eckener to name it after Hitler. But Eckener, stubborn and principled, refused. He chose the name Hindenburg instead, and this only deepened tensions. Many therefore believe the Nazis themselves might have planted a bomb out of jealousy and spite to destroy Eckener's reputation. The second theory was based on science. It suggested that static electricity had built up on the airship's metallic frame. When the ship made its sharp turn in stormy weather, sparks may have ignited the hydrogen gas inside the ship. Hydrogen, as we know, is extremely flammable. Once lit, it spreads uncontrollably. The third theory pointed to lightning. The weather was stormy, and some experts believed a bolt of lightning struck the airship, causing the hydrogen to burst into flames. Before settling on the truth, it helps to understand the history of airships. Flying, today so routine, was once nothing more than a dream. For centuries, humans gazed at birds with envy, longing to soar through the skies. In 1507, A man named John Damien in Scotland covered his arms with chicken feathers and jumped off a castle roof, flapping desperately like a bird. Instead of flying, he fell and broke his bones. When asked later, he insisted that if only he had used eagle feathers, he would have succeeded. His failure was one among many similar attempts across history. Eventually, people realized there were only two real ways to fly: either become lighter than air, like a balloon, or generate enough power to lift against gravity, like airplanes and helicopters do today. The story of airships belongs to the first method, becoming lighter than air. In the 1770s, two French brothers, Joseph Michel and Jacques-Étienne Montgolfier, made history. Observing how hot air lifted objects, they experimented with boxes covered in cloth, setting fires underneath to make them rise. Their idea grew into the first hot air balloon. In 1783, before the King of France himself, they demonstrated flight with a duck and a hen inside their balloon. The king was impressed, and humans soon followed into the skies. Decades later, in Germany, a young boy named Ferdinand von Zeppelin grew fascinated by balloons after seeing them used in the American Civil War. By 1874, he had recorded in his diary an idea for a rigid airship with multiple gas bags. In 1891, he left the army to pursue this dream. His first airship, the LZ-1, flew in 1900 for 20 minutes before crashing during landing. Undeterred, he mortgaged his wife's assets to build more. Failures followed: LZ-2, LZ-3, LZ-4 all faced disasters of wind, storms, or technical flaws. Yet Zeppelin never gave up. His persistence eventually paid off. By 1908, his improved LZ-3 passed government tests, and Zeppelin's dream became reality. Airships were born, and because of his name, they were called Zeppelins. But there was always a fatal flaw. Zeppelins used hydrogen, a gas that could easily catch fire. In contrast, America used helium, which was much safer but also tightly controlled. Germany had no access to helium, and so its airships remained dangerous. Nevertheless, they grew in popularity. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles banned Germany from military airships, but Hugo Eckener, who succeeded Zeppelin after his death, saw a new future: commercial flights. He piloted an airship across the Atlantic in 1924, winning admiration as crowds called it an angel of peace. His next models carried passengers in style, and the Hindenburg was his crown jewel. And yet, on that tragic day in 1937, hydrogen became the villain once again. After decades of investigation, the most accepted explanation is that a hydrogen leak, combined with static electricity, caused the explosion. No sabotage, no lightning strike, just science and danger colliding in the worst possible way. The tragedy destroyed not just the Hindenburg, but also the reputation of all airships. People realized they were too risky. Airplanes, faster and safer, quickly overtook them. By the 1940s, airships faded into history. It's sad to think about what was lost. Imagine flying at low altitude, gazing out through massive windows, floating gently above landscapes and oceans. Imagine dining together in elegant halls, listening to music on a piano while drifting through clouds. Airships weren't just a means of transport. They were an experience, a dreamlike way of seeing the world. If you're enjoying this story, pause for a second and hit that subscribe button. Don't miss more stories like this: stories of forgotten marvels, human ambition, and the mysteries of history. Your one click helps keep these incredible tales alive, but there is hope that airships may return. In 2017, a UK-based company called Hybrid Air Vehicles tested a giant new airship, the Airlander 10, now known as the world's largest aircraft. Unlike the Hindenburg, it uses helium, which is safe. With climate change pressing humanity to reduce emissions, airships could become the eco-friendly future of travel. They produce 1/10 the carbon emissions of airplanes, run at lower fuel costs, and glide almost silently. The company believes that after 2030, commercial airship flights may return, reviving this lost wonder for a new age. The story of the Hindenburg is tragic, but it is also inspiring. It shows human ambition, our desire to reach the skies, our failures and triumphs. It shows persistence, like Zeppelin's lifelong struggle, and it reminds us of the dangers of hubris placing spectacle above safety. Yet perhaps it also offers a glimpse of what might come again, a slower, quieter, more beautiful way of traveling the world. What do you think? Should airships make a comeback, or are they best left in history books as a cautionary tale? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective.